were still with guns and war, and everyone died trampled on the floor.
Live in the present with an eye on the future, and let the past guide you. That's one of my many Brettisms. I used to have all of these sayings I used to conjure up I used to call them Brettisms. I think that one still stands up, except in these days you certainly let the Lord, the Holy Spirit guide you, aren't we? Today I wanted to, just in that vein, I want to try and bring together just all the recent events that have been going on in the world, and just try and bring them all together and just see exactly if we can make some sort of sense of what all these things mean. Those of us with eyes that see, ears that hear. Before I do that, I just want to let everyone know that I have finished Leviticus. It's only taken me a couple of days, and believe it or not, I found it most nourishing. There's a lot in there that absolutely I don't understand, and I think most people in the world would not understand Leviticus, and I think that's why there might be so much debate, to be honest, about the law and the gospel, because for me, reading of the law, to me, basically put the whole discussion for me to bed once and for all, in that this was more of a cleansing. The law was more of a cleansing of the past sins, and a recognition that you can't live to it. It's just, and a lot of it, you just can't understand it. You can't understand it. Like, the Lord doesn't want us going out and sacrificing all of these animals today. And I mean, that's the law, isn't it? If you're not sacrificing animals, you're not living to the law. But in any case, a few verses in there really stood out to me in terms of my walk and my calling. And one of them come from chapter 16, verse 2. And the Lord said unto Moses, Speak unto Aaron thy brother, that he come not at all times into the holy place within the veil, before the mercy seat which is upon the ark, that he die not, for I will appear in the cloud upon the mercy seat. So for me, this was just loaded, and there was quite a few verses in Leviticus that spoke like this. Come not at all times into the holy place within the veil. So that's interesting to me, because it indicates that there's a separation going on here. But the Israelites could come into that holy place within the veil, which is upon the ark. So the ark again, and as I read on, it would appear the ark may have been made of wood as well. So there's something going on there. So the way I'm sort of starting to read things is that there's a real separation of God's people going on. But I'm going to do that in another video. I'm going to try and digest it a bit more and do it in another video. But I wanted to have that in there just with this video today, because of what this video is going to be about. And it's just about bringing all of these recent events that have been happening, trying to bring them all together. So on December 11 here in Australia, George Pell, last year, George Pell, he's the highest ranking Catholic in Australia. He was found guilty of child sex charges. On the 13th of March this year, he was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Now, those of us with eyes that see, ears that hear, know that he is not in prison. No, he was not found guilty of anything. He's just a Freemason, and it was just a Freemason charade, just an act, just a show, to show the public that that the courts, that the legal system are being hard on these Catholic priests who did molest all these kids back in the past. And it finally gave victims that closure. They were richly just so keen to get, and rightly so get, but they didn't, because all of these alleged victims you see on the street that they interview and all that, they're all just Freemasons. They're all just in on it. And George Pell is not in jail. He's in Israel. He's in the Vatican. He's in Switzerland. He's one of those places, and he's living it up right now in the lap of luxury, with just little boys to his every beck and call. So what does this do? This gives the Catholics just some clean air going forward, because they can now rid themselves of all of this disgusting, unsavory type behaviour, and then they can move forward. And I mean, if you're a Catholic within the Catholic Church today, you're either very, very misguided, you're complicit, or you just don't want to know. Either way, you are. If you're a Catholic, you're not walking with God. It can't be. It's not possible. You can't be. On February 28, Kim Jong and Donald Trump meet in Hanoi. And this is where I I did a video on this and I saw Kim Jong-un doing that 666 sign. It finally put to bed for me this day that Kim Jong-un was some sort of maybe hero, somebody who we could maybe look upon that could end all this. But no, that just, to me, it just solidified my belief that they're all in on it. The whole thing's run by these elite bloodlines, the nephilim. And Kim Jong-un is just in on it. Now, what happened here? Well, the talks broke down. They didn't really get anywhere, and now Kim Jong-un is threatening to restart his nuclear tests. So what does this do? What does this do for the New World Order? What does this do for the elite bloodlines, the Nephilim? It gives them the opportunity to have us living in fear. That's what they want. They always want us in some sort of a constant state of emotion, and right through the 60s, 70s, 80s, I know I grew up just in this environment of always fearing a nuclear war. It was always there with East Germany and Russia and all that. We were always scared. It was never going to happen. Nuclear weapons probably don't even exist. I don't know about that one. I haven't really looked into it. But what it does is that Kim Jong-un now is threatening to restart his nuclear tests. Everybody's now afraid of the big bad boogie monster that is Kim Jong-un. And even Wikipedia says he is from Switzerland. And that's where he is now. He's never left there because North Korea does not exist. Just like Antarctica, if it's really secretive and we can't go there, and there's no evidence of it existing apart from this file footage on TV, it doesn't exist. Things really started to amp up on March 15. This is when the Christchurch shooting happened. So what this, of course, was a massive false flag. There's still zero evidence of people dying. I haven't seen any evidence whatsoever of people dying. There's Masonic activity all over this. What was some of the agendas that come out here? Well, Muslims were the victims here, which was interesting because Muslims are generally the perpetrator. So Muslims here were the victims. The shooter was from this alt-right that they've invented. I'm not quite sure what the alt-right is, but I've had a bit of a look there today. Alt-right is white supremacist and it's linked with Christianity. So that now makes complete sense because that's what they want to do. They want to eliminate all sense of God and they just want to persecute Christians, of which I'm not one. People that identify as Christians from the whole, that what I've seen so far in my walk are people that are either lukewarm, complicit, or just completely ignorant to what's going on. But in any case, what it does is it links it with crazy Christians and then everybody like me, everybody who seeks truth, everybody who genuinely walks with Christ. And I know, brothers and sisters, it seems like there's probably only 2 or 3 of us in the world right now, doesn't it? It's every single time I seem to trust someone, it goes down into the Masonic pit. I've got about probably about 4 to 5 people on my channel right now contributing that I do trust, and it's just every single time I just seem to go down the Masonic pit. The latest incarnations of then was the Lodge of Wisconsin and the 2 trannies. But in any case, this now persecutes the minorities, which is exactly what they want because it enables them to put out calls for peace and unity and tolerance and where's your God and all this sort of garbage they carry on with. You see at the end, you see there just after the shooting that Jacinda Ardern, a Freemason, potentially a Nephilim, she was adorned in Muslim garb and everybody went, what a beautiful, beautiful, unifying leader this one is. And everybody loved it. Everybody loved it and they just absolutely lapped it up. The big one that come out of there, though, of course, was gun control rules. There's going to be now more gun control rules in New Zealand. The same thing happened to us here after the Port Arthur massacre. So, of course, Port Arthur, it too was just, it was orchestrated theatre. John Howard, probably the most corrupt Prime Minister in Australian history. He was responsible for Port Arthur. He was also boots and all involved in the weapons of mass destruction hoax in 2003, and he was actually in New York the day of 9/11, which of course was orchestrated by Israel, and Australia and America are of course beholden to Israel because Israel rule the world in the interests of the fallen angels. They do it through the wisdom gained of the fallen angels, and they are the rephaim in the current day in the flesh. March 25, those people I just talk about, the modern day Israel, the Nephilim, the people, the rephaim, these people, these imposters who are charading on the world stage, professing to be God's people. They took over Golan Heights. What is Golan Heights? Golan Heights is where the fallen angels fell. So they're just giving themselves up. They're giving themselves up. Where is Golan Heights really? I believe it's in Antarctica. That's why they all go there and they come back with their black eyes. That's where the black goo is. That's where they gain all of their wisdom. This is where they get in touch with the fallen angels. And you see it right through the society now of these elites. They don't look human. All of these entertainers in the music, alleged music, and all of these actors, they're all transgender. They're all inflicted now with this Nephilim seed. So what's all this doing so far? Well, it's all religious, isn't it? There's a religious overtone with all of it. With all of it, God's people are Israel, and they're in charge. Then everybody's going to look towards Israel because the rest of it's just falling apart. Christianity is falling apart because you've got crazy Christians mowing down Muslims, and then you've got the Notre Dame fire. The Notre Dame fire, again, it's another attack on religion. But what happens here? The good old Catholics are the victims. So you rewind right back to George Pell. George Pell, he was the fall guy. He was the scapegoat. It's just like what they do in America with the Harvey Weinstein and all of these. They're all Jews. They're all just fake Jews. And he was the fall guy for that. And that, what's his name? The one that did the House of Cards show. He was another fall guy. And they're all just playing a role. As George Pell was, it gives them clear air in America, in Hollywood there. It amps up the women's agenda because women, what are women? Women are, well, this is what it's all about, I think. This is what it's all about, the great feminine. But here, the Catholics are the victims, so now they've got some real clear air. The Catholics now have got some real clear air. So who do they look upon? They look upon the Pope. Who's the Pope? The Pope represents Lucifer. So you've got they're the main two world leaders, religious leaders. You've got the Pope, who is Lucifer. He's not personally Lucifer, but he's Lucifer's representative. And you've got the current day Israel, the Jews, the rephaim, the fake Jews, the rephaim. They're God's people, so that's who people are going to look upon when Muslims and all the rest of it and Christianity all falls apart because they're all killing each other. Sri Lanka, and then comes Sri Lanka. So here the Muslims did it. The Muslims here were the perpetrators, and they did it to the whites. They did it to the Christians. I note that there's Australian and US victims. It looks like this one actually occurred, but of course it was a false flag. So what does this one mean? Well, it's the opposite, isn't it? Because here Muslims perpetrated it, and the Christians and the whites are the victims. So it's all just falling apart. It's all just a huge mess, isn't it? We have a problem. Oh, yes, we have a problem. Everybody just keeps shooting down each other in the name of religion, and we have a reaction. And what's the reaction? We all cry for peace. We all cry for love. We all cry for unity, and we all cry for tolerance, don't we? The gunman was caught on CCTV. Of course he was, because that's going to now show us how good CCTV is and the benefits of CCTV. So now they're going to surveil us more, and it's all just going to be in the interest of our own safety. And remember, when they come in the interest of peace and safety, we all know what the Bible says in Thessalonians there, don't we? I noticed in the Sri Lankan massacre that ISIS were responsible. Now, Google ISIS, something that I've started doing today after reading Leviticus. This is why I sort of talked about Leviticus at the start, because of the veil and who these gods, or why we're sacrificing these animals. But you Google ram god, you Google bullock god, you Google ISIS god, and it's all there. So these sacrifices had to do, in Leviticus, had to do with all of these gods. All of these gods on earth, all of these Luciferian satanic gods that they all look up to. The ram was interesting for me because that's Rama, which I think is Hindi. So that for me is really interesting. So now I go back to the ram in early Genesis there with the story of Abraham and Isaac. I'm a bit confused with all that at the moment, but this is what they are. So Isis, who was Isis? Isis was the mother of Horus. And who was Horus? Horus was a god of the sky, and he was probably the most well-known of the protectors of the rulers of Egypt. So he is like a potentially one of the fallen angels, maybe, I don't know, because he's a god, so maybe he's just made up, I don't know. But what's Egypt? Egypt represents evil, it represents affliction, it represents bondage, it represents barrenness, it represents everything that is not of God. You go back to Genesis 1:2, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And that's what Horus is, or that's what Egypt is, and that's what Horus is a protector of, and he's the god of the sky, which probably means he's some sort of sun god as well. It's all going to link in. If I look at it any further, it's probably all going to link in with Tammuz and Nimrod and the Tower of Babel. It's all going to link in with that. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and that's what we're waiting upon now. We're awaiting us who are in the light out of Egypt. I personally have been taken out of the bondage of the Egyptians. My life in the last 18 months has been the book of Exodus. Those of us in the body of Christ, we're just waiting for our Genesis 1:3 moment, and that is, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. Because it sure does feel as though right now we live in a life where it's very, very devoid of light. Jesus is very much here. He's within us. He's within us who believe in him. He's within us who follow him. And the more you believe and the more you follow, the more he manifests in your life. And I'm testimony to that. I don't air every last detail about me and my calling on YouTube, but anybody that knows me will see the change in me has been quite remarkable. And someone actually said the other day, you'll be unrecognisable. And I thought, oh yes, that absolutely resonates with me. Which brings me to the what's next. So what's going on now? So you can see here that the Muslims and the Christians and the whites and the colours, and they're all fighting each other. And the church of Notre Dame, it's been burnt down. To me, it all comes back to Israel, of course, because Israel do run the world. Switzerland run the world, but the nephilim, the rephaim, the current day Israel, their star on their flag, it's exactly the same as the rephaim. So I'm not speaking intolerance. I am not speaking hatred. I am not speaking anything of the sort. I'm just speaking the truth. That's exactly who they are. And they are doing everything that's anti-God, because every time you read the word Israel and every time you read the word Jerusalem in the Bible, it's not a physical location, it's a spiritual place of which I dwell. But these people, because they're of Satan, because they're of the world, they bring it all back to the flesh, and they control that land they currently call Israel. Whether that's where events actually happened in the Old Testament, I don't know. To me, it seems ridiculous, because there were so many people. There were so many people in the 12 tribes of Israel and all of these other people, and there was clearly talk about the Ethiopians in the Old Testament. And Paul went all over the world. He went to Europe. He went to Asia. He went all over the world preaching the gospel in the New Testament. So I think it's utterly ridiculous that all of the events of the Old Testament took place in Israel. But in any case, the current day Israel, they reckon the temple that the Lord had, I don't even know whether there was a physical temple. The longer I go on, the more I think that no, there was no physical temple. But in any case, they're building this physical third temple, which is just going to house the Antichrist. So what's all this setting up? You can be darned tootin', because that's the one I missed as well. There was a synagogue shooting there yesterday in America. So the fake Jews again, they get to play the victim yet again. They get to play the victim. So what's all this setting up for? It's like, okay, so now people are attacking Jews. Who was the shooter? The shooter was a 19-year-old American white man. They say he was violently anti-Semitic and he was also anti-Muslim. So it just sets it all up because the Jews get to play the victim again, and this guy's anti-Muslim. He just hates them all. To me, the next thing that's happening is there's going to be an attack on this Dome of the Rock, this place where they want to build the third temple, because that's where they want to bring in the Antichrist. And there's stuff there on IPEC Goat. I've had a bit of a look at IPEC Goat this morning, and there's a scene there in IPEC Goat where it looks like the Muslims are just dead. They're basically dead, and their whole faith is just obliterated. And I believe that's what's going to happen, because then it all links back to in IPEC Goat, it all links back to the Antichrist, and that's what's going to happen. The Antichrist will dwell in that Dome of the Rock, in the third temple. It's all ready to go. They've already minted the coins. All the preparations are complete. It's all ready to roll. That's where the Antichrist will dwell, and the masses will believe it, because they believe the current day Israelites are God's people, are the same as the Old Testament Jews, which is completely incorrect. They are the people that the Jews actually fought. They are the rephaim. They are the giants. They are the people that the Lord talks about in Genesis 6:4, that everybody ties themselves up into knots about. And that's why you can't say anything about them. And that's why my videos get censored, because I'm speaking the truth, and I'm one of the very, very few people in the world who seem to know this. But those of you watching this, you either already know, or you do now, or you just got to stay in denial. I'll finish today with my Bible verse of the day. Today it comes from the book of Revelation, chapter 4, verse 11. Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honour and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. Boom. Praise be to Jesus, my brothers and sisters, and all power and glory goes to Jesus Christ, our Saviour, the King.
To change your mind, the sun has come. You've been left behind.